Hey friends, today's video is all about cozy autumn vibes. I'll be drawing tiny fall objects in Procreate: a mushroom, a candle, a leaf, a mug, and an acorn. It's simple, relaxing, and perfect for practicing the new Procreate 5.4 brushes. Let's slow down and draw together. Remember that you can download my autumn color palette for free. The link's in the description. So let's begin. So to start, we're going to create a new canvas, and here I'm going to select an A3, but basically in RGB. We are going to start with something easy. I'm going to select the black pen, and with the new Procreate 5.4, you know that if you pinch down, you have the classic library and then you have the Procreate library. So I'm going to use one of the brushes that I normally use, which is not on the Procreate library, but on the classic library. I have it on my favorites. If you have been following me, you know that this brush is one that I bought. It's a brush from Gouache Max Pack. So first thing, I'm going to drag Pinterest on the left side so I can have a reference picture. And here I already typed in Acorn, so I'm going to take one of these references for my Acorn drawing. So for example, this one. The photo is from Dominique Reinheimer. I'm going to try and put the credits here the best I can. Let's pick one brush. I'm going to pick my Gouache Grainy. So the first thing that you have to draw is the cap of the acorn. So say that the acorn has some of these shapes, right? Draw the acorn cap like a sideways, slightly flattened bean, something like this. Okay. And so once you have this, you can perfect this a little bit more. And we are going to add some checker pattern here because we can try and translate this into triangular things, but I'm going to keep it just a little bit more dreamy. And yeah, so I always draw 3 lines like this. So if you're a beginner, drawing and making small patterns like this will help you to have like a coordination on your drawings. So try to do a lot of lines like this daily. I'm going to create a new layer and then drag the sketch layer on top. So I'm going to insert the photo of the drawing that I did previously. It was a rough sketch to see how to create this illustration. So I'm going to select this color, and so I'm going to add it here on my acorn. You see this color is a little bit more like nutty color, so it's more vibrant. We could also add the green. Actually, the green is pretty fun. I'm going to create a new layer to draw the cap on another layer, and I've selected the green color, and so I'm going just to add the color on the shape. Okay, once you have your acorn ready, we are going to dive into shadows. So I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to select the color picker here with this square tool, and I'm going to pick this green. And I'm going to make this layer as multiply and click on layer and clip it mask. So once you see this small little arrow, that means that you are in a clipping mask, and everything you draw in this layer will be inside of this green cap, okay? So I can do like this, that it will only draw inside. So I'm going to pick one brush from the new Procreate brush library. I'm going to click to back to libraries. I'm going to pick it from basics, the mint brush, and I'm going to draw slightly on the edges, so it creates sort of a shadow. Remember, on the tip a little bit and on the edges. Okay, and so once you have this, you can always lower the opacity more so that you can see clearly. And instead of drawing these small triangles, I'm going to draw only a checker pattern. So I'm going to click again on a new layer, clipping mask, multiply. I'm going to choose a darker tone, and I'm going to choose again my favorite brush, which is the Gouache Max Pack. So what I'm going to do is to draw one pattern in here. You can draw the acorn as you wish, but it has to be recognizable, you know, more or less. I could draw like the pics like this, but I feel like too real for me. So I'm going to draw the checker pattern, which I feel that it's more creative and more fun. Okay, now let's try and add a little bit of texture on the knot part. So let's add a new layer, click on the clipping mask. So I'm going to pick some other colors, and I'm going to choose under pastels the Maina, and I'm going to brush slightly. Or you could also add less opacity and brush on top of all the acorn, and so it feels like more textured. And then I'm going to add a multiply on a new layer, and I am going again to my favorite classic library, which I'm going to use the Gouache Max Pack, and I am going to brush a little bit. Let's do like a line. So this edge feels really clean. I'm going to add on the green again, picking the initial green, I'm going to add a little bit of texture on the edges because it feels like very, very clean and very digital. And I want more texture around this acorn. So as you can see, now it's more textured and feels like a drawing on paper. If you have one brush, you can also click and hold the eraser, and you can bring the brush that you were using on the eraser too. So now I'm erasing a little bit with the same brush. Okay, so in the edges, I'm going to add a little bit of shape because it feels like it's not a clean line. And I'm going to add some curves in here so it has more of volume. What it's left to do is to add some highlights here. We could add also a little bit of purple. Let me see if, like very, very light purple, almost gray. Let's see how this looks. And if you feel that it's too strong as a color, you can always lower the opacity, and more or less we have a small shadow. Now I'm going to pick this brown again, and I'm going to add a new layer and select on the end letter, instead of normal, select a screen. And I'm going to drag this on top, but I'm going to choose a better brush for this, which could be like olive, for example. And you can draw like a rectangle, like following the lines, always a little bit curved, okay, and a small square. And it will give you some highlights to your acorn. If you feel the purple is not working well, you can always take it down or take it away. And I think it's missing some of yellow in here. So on top of the acorn cap, I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm going to add a yellow, almost ochre close to the green without being green. And I'm just going to brush a little bit on top. Let me see if this color could be a little bit lighter. And I'm going to brush a little bit on top, so it doesn't look too green. I don't know if you can see the difference between this and this, but one is lighter and one is darker. So I will say I will add a little more of shadows under the cap in here with any brush, actually, doesn't matter. And I think we are done. We just have to add some shadow on the floor here. So I'm going to pick some color like this, and I'm going to brush a little bit as if they were on the ground. And there you go, you have your first acorn illustration. What we're going to do is to click on all the layers of the acorn and click group. And this way we have acorn here. I like to stay organized, and now we can keep moving on. We can drag this here, and now we can move on with a new layer and the second item that we want to draw. So these items are very useful because in case you want to create a pattern in the future, you already have 6 or 7 motifs to create a pattern to. First, I'm going to create this color for the background, and I'm going to drag it on the bottom. Maybe it's too dark. Let me see. And I am going to draw a mug. Okay, I'm going to my usual gouache max pack brush, and I'm going to draw this mug, for example. Okay, remember to add a new layer for this one. Instead of creating one on a existing layer, you have to draw a oval shape, and then let's make like a oval mug, and then the ear. And I think I'm going to create, instead of a lemon, I'm going to create like a strawberry, for example. Okay, so let's click on the end letter, lower the opacity down, choose a beige color like this. Okay, so new layer. I'm going to drag the new layer under the sketch layer, okay? And so like this, you can see your color and your sketch. I'm going to drag this, close your shapes really well, and then you have your first shape. New layer. Click on the layer, clip and mask, add a multiply to your layer, and with the same color we can brush here and it will add a darker color. But I am going to the adjustments, hue, saturation, and brightness, and I'm going to take down the color. So say something like this, okay. And I'm going to color this. And also I'm going to add some of the shadows while I'm here on this layer, and I'm going to click on oils and olive again, and I am going to brush a little bit. So you have to be careful and see where your light is coming from. If your light is coming from here, your shadows will be in this side, okay? So new layer, I'm going to choose a red, like this red, for example. And I'm going to draw my strawberries. So now I'm going to pick a green, and I'm going to select again my gouache Max Pack brush. I should create like a new layer with all my favorite brushes because it's so time consuming to go to one library to another. Fill, continue filling, and you can tap in here. Let's fill up all the white shapes that you have here, white blanks. What we're going to do is to add this layer on top of the white of the mag, and as you can see, you already converted it to a clipping mask, and so the green lines stay inside of the white mag. I'm going to add some dark green. I'm going to create a multiply layer with the same green that we had. So what I'm going to do is just to brush and follow the lines that I already had. Too thick. Let me make it smaller. And let's create another layer to create some little dots on the strawberry. This should be on top of the strawberry to get seen. And let's choose another brush. So let's choose Sanderling on under pen. Okay, so now I see that the green part is under the strawberry. So what I'm going to do is to drag the red strawberry under the green layer. You see, and now this part is perfect. I'm going to take away my sketch layer, and you can more or less see that this is my mag and it needs a little bit of color, and the shadows are not exactly transparent. So I'm going to do this as a multiply. I'm going to lower the opacity. I'm going to add some lines more, and now it feels more cohesive. I would like to add some purple again, like purple blue on my mag, and I think that could be interesting. Let me choose a brush. Let's try Firetail. Okay, I don't know how big is this brush, but if you see, it's really, really smooth. Okay, I actually like this better, so I'm going to click on the layer, clear. I've cleaned it all, and I'm going to start again. Brush a little bit inside of your mag holder and on the oval shape, remember. The only thing is that I would like a cleaner line here on this oval shape, so I'm going to create it with the eraser. And in here, I would like to add a darker. You see, I'm going to create a smaller brush size, and then I'm going to brush inside here so you can see a little bit of depth inside of the mag. And now I would like to add some colors to the leaves because they feel a little bit lonely. And now I can create like some ochres. I'm going to choose pastels. I'm going to choose Ravenswood. Okay. All these clipping masks are inside of this mag. So if I try to draw, it will not stay inside of the leaf. So what we are going to do in this case is click on the layer of the leaves, select, okay, and then go to the layers panel and create a new layer and draw here. So everything that you draw in here will be inside of your leaf. Okay, so I'm going to lower the opacity down a little bit. So this will be our second mag. I'm going to add some lines here to create some kind of depth on the mag. It feels a little bit lonely. And so I'm going to add some line art so it feels like more clean. So depending on the effect that you want, you could leave it like this, or you can add some lines as I'm doing. I'm just going to select this color, the one in the background. I'm going to add a new layer, drag it under the mag because we are going to create some shadows, and select to multiply. Click on the N letter, drag it to multiply, okay? So let's go to pastels and fairy rhyme. And this one, I think it's very textured. And now what it's left to do is to swipe to the right side and group. And now I'm going to rename this as mug. Okay, we have our second item drawn. And now let's draw some leaves like the acorn. Let's have this picture as a reference. And so now we can go to the third item, and it's a leaf. So say that we are going to draw, I'm going to pick again my favorite brush, and I'm going to create a new layer, drag it on top. In this case, I'm going to draw like a leaf. So think of the veins as the skeleton of your leaf. So I'm going to draw this one. If you see the acorn's leaves, it has some like rounder shapes. And so if you follow the shape, it's actually really, really relaxing to draw leaves like this. Okay, so we have one. Think of it as each vein should go to each rounded lobe, okay? And you can stand small veins from the first one. Okay, we have our first leaf. You can draw several of them if you like. For example, I'm going to draw this one, which, okay, and then draw some veins in here. Okay, I'm going just to grab this here, and we are going to draw another leaf. Okay, and then veins to the rounder lobes, and then smaller veins from the initial lines. Okay, so now I'm going to lower the opacity down again, and I'm going to pick the first beige colors, this one, for example. New layer, drag under the sketch layer, and draw the first. Okay, let me choose the script brush because this way I know that it will not extend the color to all my screen. So this is something that I mentioned in one of my videos. It's about the brushes I use, and you should take a look. I'm going to link it somewhere here. The second color will be this caramel color, which I love. I think it's beautiful. Look at this. Okay, drag your color to your shape. And the third color is a little bit more dark color, but it's also nice to have on a new layer. Okay, really easy, right? And now we are going to add some, for each layer, some shadow. So let's create a new layer for this one, and I'm going to create a clipping mask. This will be for the first leaf, and we are going to choose, we are going to go to basics on the Procreate library, and we are going to choose the mint brush. I am going to use like sort of like a blue color, purple color, and I'm just going to brush all the edges that are inside. So for example, this, you know, the peaks that comes inside, not on the outside. You can do on the outside also, but only in some of them, okay? Like light, really, really light. I like to always do like here, for example, here, and it creates sort of depth and richness to your illustration. Okay, now that we have our colors, what we are going to do is to pick this brown that I already had here. I'm going to choose the same brush. I'm going to choose this brush, pencils Warata, or any of the pencils, and let's create the vein. Or you can do something even easier, which is, for example, on your sketch layer, I'm going to click, because remember the sketch layer, the three leaves are together, so I'm going to select this one, click on the arrow tool, swipe 3 fingers down, duplicate, and this one that it's already pretty clean, you can drag with 2 fingers to the left, and once you see this checker pattern, what you can do, which is really fast, is to choose the color, the correct color that you want to apply, and click on the layer and add fill layer. And this way, you don't need to draw it all over again. So now if you want, you can leave the edges beige like this, or you can clean it, as I am going to do. You have your first leaf. If you feel that it's not complete or you need more color, you can always go back to this layer that we did the outline and take away the alpha lock. You have 2 ways to do it, either with 2 fingers or clicking on the layer and selecting or deselecting the alpha lock here. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to perfect the veins a little bit because it feels a little uneven and a little bit empty for my taste. So this tool, like the fill layer tool, it saves me a lot of time. Actually took me some time to find it, but once you know how it works, even if you have small details, you can, with one click, you can fill them all with one color, which is great. If you haven't tried it, try it and leave me in the comments what you think about it. Okay, so first leaf done. Let's go to the second leaf. We are going to do the same. Let's click on the S tool on the sketch layer, okay, and I'm going to select this. Click the arrow tool, 3 fingers down, duplicate, and now you have your sketch layer. So click on the layer, alpha lock. Once you see the square pattern, you can select your color. What was my color? Let me see. It was this brown, and I am going to click on the layer. I already have my brown. Click on the layer, fill layer. Done. And here are some edges that I don't like. I need to erase them. Okay, so I'm going to take away this one because it feels like it's underneath. Okay, I'm going to take these details that are not perfect, and I am going to draw it again with my brush. And now we are going to add some shadows. So we are going to click on the clay and base layer. I'm going to click on the layer, clay mask, and I'm going to turn this into multiply. And I'm going to choose again on basics, the mint brush, which I loved for this. Remember to click on the edges a little bit. If it's too dark, don't worry. because we are going to take care of it now. Okay, I'm going to go in and lower my opacity a little bit, and you have your second leaf. You can always take away the effect, this effect of the art line on the outside and keep the veins only for the leaf. That's also really nice. We can do it for this one if you want to. I'm going to click on the layer, click on clipping mask, and I'm going to choose a dark color. In this case, I'm going to select under pencils the Huntsman brush, and I'm going to draw the inside. Okay, and I'm going to create another new layer with a clipping mask already, because it's when you have the first clipping mask, if you create a new layer, Procreate already converts it into clipping mask, so it's very easy. And I'm going to use, by clicking on the End tool, instead of multiply, I'm going to use screen, which normally adds a little bit of highlights, and I'm going to choose the same color of the leaf. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to choose on basics, on mint brush. So I'm going to create highlights by clicking on the N. Instead of going to multiply, we're going to choose screen. Screen adds sort of lighter tones, and so we've chose under basics the mint brush, and same as the other leaves, we are going to brush here inside. Okay. Okay, and so now I'm going to take away the sketch layer, and you can see that the screen blend mode adds a little bit of light to the leaf, and if you feel it's too light, you can always take down the lightness by playing with the opacity. Here I'm going to leave it to the 66%, and in this case I am going to perfect here the lines. Okay, what you are going to do is, again, swipe to the right, group, and click on the layer, name leaves. And you have your leaves in here. And the fourth item is a candle, and I saw one that I loved, so I'm going to give you the reference here, which is this one. I think it's really nice. So we are going to pick again the black brush with a pencil. Let's choose a lofty pencil, for example, and draw this candle. So you are going to draw like a cylinder, slightly diagonally here, and when you arrive to the bottom, you're going to draw like a sort of a ribbon, but it's falling on this side. So the ribbons, for me, since they are really, you know, foldable and all of that, on illustration, I like to draw it a little bit square. So for example, in this, I am going to create something like this, so more of a square shape. And I'm going to draw here the candle, okay, but I'm going to fold this to make it fall on the table like this, like a square, some sort of something like this. I don't know if you can see anything. And here we are going to draw like a slightly higher flame, and we are going to draw the light, of course, because without the lighting it's very different. So lighting is everything. We are going to draw some wax in here falling, and now I'm going to drag this here. I'm going to lower the opacity to a 24%, and I'm going to choose my colors, which I already have here. Create a new layer, drag it under the sketch layer, okay? I am going to select a lighter tone. So in here, I'm going to use my Lofty pencil. Actually, I kind of like this pencil. It's really similar to my gouache max pack, so you can use this one. And I'm going to add this pink ribbon, which I thought it was so charming, in a new layer, of course. New layer. And I am going to draw the shape of the ribbon. And I'm going to fill it. Now I can drag the color and fill the whole shape. So once you drop your color, you see that there is a white line. So instead of taking away your pen, watching this threshold, you can drag and holding your pen, drag to the right, and you can see that it fills, right? So I think to the threshold of 56, it's okay. Let me try it again on this shape. If I drag too much, you see it fills all the layer, and that's not what we want. So in here, we're going to drag again, and to the left side in this case, because it filled all the page, so we drag to the other side. Okay, I think more or less I have my ribbon, and now I want to draw some gold for the candle. Let me see, it's like this. So and I'm going to add a new layer and add under screen. Remember, here if you click on the letter, you can drag to screen, and with the same color, if you go to your brushes again, you can add some highlights. See? Kind of feels like an old gold or something like this. And I'm going to add the effect of the ribbon. So I'm going to click on the layer, clip and mask. I'm going to drag this to a multiply, select the same pink, and I'm going to draw inside of the ribbon the parts that are with shadow. And I'm going to put it in this side too, because the light is coming from here and this is underneath, okay? And we can create something here. Also here you can create, where it falls, you can create like a triangle or something like this as it folds, and here underneath of the ribbon too. If it's too dark, what I always do is drag the opacity down a little bit. And now I'm going to add some highlights because I want to recreate the velvet effect. And for that, I'm going to add a new layer, clipping mask. Okay, so the brush that I'm going to use to create the velvet effect is under charcoals, Zeria. I think it's pronounced like this. Sorry for my English, it's not perfect. And on the layer, we're going to click on the N letter and drag it to screen. So in here, we can look at this brush. It's beautiful. We can brush a little bit. Here too, here, and on the edges. So if you feel that it's too overwhelming right now, I'm going to take away my sketch layer and I'm going to add some details more to the ribbon because it's not enough. I'm going to choose the multiply layer and I'm going to choose the pencil Lofty again, and I'm going to define, okay? I'm going to define here the ribbon. So some edges, some parts needs to be darker. just going to add the line in some places. I don't like to add it in all the illustration because you kind of lose the effect of the texture on the edges, which is the nicest part. And now we are going to create the flame. Create on a new layer, we are going to create a yellow flame. So something like this, really bright, with the same pencil, okay? It's the lofty one. And what I'm going to do is go to oils, under scallop. I'm going to select a darker yellow. I want to create a new layer under the flame, and I'm going to choose the yellow color. And so here it can be bigger because I'm going to create like a sort of rounder shape. And as you can see, the more I press, the more color it has. So really light. And we are going to drag this under the candle, and that way you can feel the warmth of this candle. Okay, let me try again. I'm going to choose under pencil my lofty pencil. And this, I think I need to add it on top of the flame. Yes. And now we need to add some new layer, click on the layer clipping mask to add some shadows to the candle. And I think we are more or less done. So click on the layer, multiply, and with the same color we are going to create with, for example, gouache, like Boroni or something like this. And under every wax drop that it's here, and in here we can add a little bit of shadows too, using the same brush. I'm going to add a new layer and put it underneath the candle. So now I'm going to brush a little bit everywhere where the ribbon falls to. I'm going to create this as a multiply layer so you can see it better and take it down a little bit. So with the opacity, I love to play with opacity because you can add the perfect amount of shadow that you need. Okay, so let's swipe to the right to create a group so it's less messy, because if not, imagine all these layers dancing around here. And I'm going to rename this as candle. Now the last but not least is my mushroom. I'm going to select the lofty, and we are going to draw again on a new layer my mushroom. Okay, so let's add a lot of white dots. Remember to not add it like perfectly even. Should be a little bit like disorganized. One in here, one in there, a bunch of them together, a bunch of them alone. And that's it, okay? So we are going to add a red, really red for this. I am adding a new layer, drag it under the sketch layer. I'm going to lower the opacity here, and I'm going to draw with my lofty brush. Feel free to fill the edges and in here too. Okay. And now we are going to add a white in here. So let's add a new layer, drag it underneath, and paint. And with that, you have your solid colors ready. And now I'm going to add over the red, because you know that every item, there's not only one color, it should be more than one. I'm going to add the same red a little bit with the screen blend mode, because that adds sort of like texture. And with this new layer, I'm going to click with a clipping mask, and I'm going to add some brush. So for example, Orca. Look at how beautiful it is. So let's say that the lights comes from the candle, and we are going to brush a little bit to add the color. If it's too bright, don't worry, you can always click on the S tool and lower the opacity. Okay, and smudge better the sides if you feel more comfortable. And now we are going to add some white spots, and I'm going to choose again my pencil, which is the Lofty one. Remember to add a lot on the bottom, because this kind of mushroom is like this, and then on the edges too. Okay, so let's add some brown on the edges, because it feels like they always are around a lot of branches and greens. And I'm going to add some green too. More vibrant. And I'm going to add some shadows for the whites, because it feels very, very white. I'm going to click on the layer, clipping mask, remember. And so the white doesn't multiply. I'm going to choose a light gray, and you can use a charcoal, or under pastels, let's use the Trevelin. Going to brush a little bit and lower the opacity down, because it feels too dark. Wait, if the light comes from this way, this part should be longer. And so if you want to add some outline around the mushroom, you could. Let's use like an even darker red so that it defines really well. Let's go to the Lofty pencil, and I'm going to underline here the mushroom, so it feels like more deep. Also on this side, because the light is coming from here, so I will add something like this. And if you want to add some lines, as they were not perfect, like a little bit broken, or to add some texture, that could be too. In fact, I'm going to add this color a little bit darker, because it feels too red. Okay, I'm going to take away my sketch layer, and there you go. Swipe to the right, remember to keep this group together and name it mushroom. And there you go. You have mushroom, candle leaves, acorn, and a mug. You can resize them as you wish. Now I'm going to take this here. I'm going to put my mushroom over here. I am deselect this and I'm going to make my mug a little bit bigger so you can see. So I hope you liked this video, and if you did, remember to give it a thumbs up or subscribe or share it with a friend. I hope you learned something in this tutorial, and if you did, I will really love that you will click the like button or subscribe, and see you in the next one.